Hi boys and girls, this is Miss Bridget from Pickfair. Welcome back to part 3 of the Fablehaven read-along. Grab a snack, something cozy. I'm ready to get started. Sparta's here, he's ready to get started. So let's start off with a quick recap. So part 2 ended with Kendra and Seth, their brother and sister, right? They're our main characters of the story. They are heading up to their grandparents' house and they just got there. But they realize that on their way up that their house is kind of in the middle of nowhere. Their grandparents own tons of land, so it took a while to get there. And they noticed as they were driving up their driveway to the house that there were all these signs telling people to stay out, and that there's no trespassers allowed. And some of them even threatened people if they came onto their land. So their grandparents definitely don't want anyone on their land or near their house. Now, when they got up to the house, they met their grandfather, their Grandpa Sorensen, and they asked where their grandmother was, and she's not there right now. She's in Missouri visiting an aunt. And they also met their housekeeper, Lena, and then they also met another employee of their grandpa's named Dale, who helps them out with the work around his land. And so our last part ended right as Kendra was walking into their grandparents' house. So that's where we'll start. Kendra entered the house. Glossy wood floored the entry hall. A wilting arrangement of flowers rested on a low table in a white ceramic vase. A tall brass coat rack stood off to one side beside a black bench with a high carved back. On the wall hung a painting of a fox hunt. Kendra could see into another room where a huge embroidered throw rug covered most of the wooden floor. Like the house itself, the furnishings were antiquated, but in good repair. The couches and chairs were mostly of the sort you would expect to see while visiting a historical site. Dale was heading up the stairs with some bags. Lena excused herself and went to another room. "Your home is beautiful," Mom said. "I wish we had time for a tour." "Maybe when you get back," Grandpa said. "Thanks for letting the kids stay with you," Dad said. "Our pleasure. Don't let me keep you." "We're on a pretty tight schedule," Dad apologized. "You kids be good and do whatever Grandpa Sorensen tells you," Mom said. She hugged Kendra and Seth. Kendra felt tears seeping into her eyes. She fought them back. "Have a fun cruise." "We'll be back before you know it," Dad said, putting an arm around Kendra and tussling Seth's hair. Waving, Mom and Dad walked out the door. Kendra went to the doorway and watched them climb into the SUV. Dad honked as they drove off. Kendra fought back tears again as the SUV vanished into the trees. Mom and Dad were probably laughing, relieved to be off by themselves for the longest vacation of their married lives. She could practically hear their crystal goblets clinking, and here she stood, abandoned. Kendra closed the door. Seth, oblivious as ever, was examining the intricate pieces of a decorated chess set. Grandpa stood in the entry hall, watching Seth and looking politely uncomfortable. "Leave the chess pieces alone," Kendra said. "They look expensive." "Oh, he's all right," Grandpa said. But the way he said it, Kendra could tell he was relieved to see Seth putting down the pieces. "Shall I show you to your room?" They followed Grandpa up the stairs and down a carpeted hall to the foot of a narrow wooden staircase leading up to a white door. Grandpa continued on up the creaking steps. "We don't often have guests, especially children," Grandpa said over his shoulder. "I think you'll be most comfortable in the attic." He opened the door, and they were entered after him. Braced for cobwebs and torture devices, Kendra was relieved to find that the attic was a cheerful playroom, spacious, clean, and bright. The long room had a pair of beds, shelves crowded with children's books, freestanding wardrobes, tidy dressers, a unicorn rocking horse, multiple toy chests, and a hen in a cage. Seth went straight for the chicken. "Cool!" He poked a finger through the slender bars, trying to touch the orange gold feathers. "Careful, Seth," Kendra warned. "He'll be fine," Grandpa said. "Goldilocks is more of a house pet than a barnyard hen. Your grandmother usually takes care of her. I figured you kids wouldn't mind filling in while she's gone. You'll need to feed her, clean her cage, and collect her eggs." "She lays eggs?" Seth looked astonished and delighted. "An egg or two a day if you keep her well fed," Grandpa said. He pointed to a plastic white bucket full of kernels near the cage. "A scoop in the morning and another in the evening should take care of her. You'll want to change the lining of her cage every couple of days and make sure she has plenty of water. Every morning we give her a tiny bowl of milk." Grandpa winked. That's the secret behind her egg production. Can we even take her out? The hen had moved close enough for Seth to stroke her feathers with one finger. Just put her back afterwards. Grandpa bent down to put a finger in the cage, and Goldilocks instantly pecked at it. Grandpa withdrew his hand. Never liked me much. Some of these toys look expensive, Kendra said, standing beside an ornate Victorian dollhouse. Toys are meant to be played with, Grandpa said. Do your best to keep them in decent shape, and that will be good enough. Seth moved from the hen cage to a small piano in the corner of the room. She banged on the keys, and the notes that clanged sounded different from what Kendra would have expected. It was a little harpsichord. Consider this room your space, Grandpa said. Within reason, I'll not bother you to pick things up in here, so as long as you treat the rest of the house with respect. Okay, Kendra said. I also have some unfortunate news. We're in the height of tick season. You kids ever hear about Lyme disease? Seth shook his head. I think so, Kendra said. It was originally discovered in the town of Lyme, Connecticut, not too far from here. You can catch it with tick bites. The woods are full of ticks this year. What does it do? Seth asked. Grandpa paused for a solemn moment. Starts out as a rash. Before long, it can lead to arthritis, paralysis, and heart failure. Besides, disease or no, you don't want ticks burrowing into your skin to drink your blood. You try to pull them off and the head detaches. Hard to get out. That's disgusting, Kendra exclaimed. Grandpa nodded grimly. They're so small you can hardly see them, at least until they fill up with blood. Then they swell to the size of a grape. Anyhow, point is, you kids are not allowed to enter the woods under any circumstances. Stay on the lawn, break that rule, and your outdoor privileges will be revoked. We understand one another? Kendra and Seth nodded. And that's what we're in today. I hope you guys enjoyed this short reading. I will see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.